All right? So those conducting we term large because they are very elastic. They are under a lot more pressures that are present. The pressure decreases, that 120, it decreases as it continues to move into large, into medium, and definitely into small, but pressure is still present even when I get to this level right here in the capillaries. So we go from large to the medium, which they term distributing, because my large are considered the ones that are coming off of the heart right here and then begin to branch, leading or distributing blood to these other areas of the body. So I have my distributing, then I get to my small. These are going to be called resistance. These are going to be my arterioles, metarterioles, and getting to my capillary beds. Now, the reason that they're called resistance, they're going to be able to control the blood flow to the tissue. Meaning, blood will either, as it makes it through the capillary, it'll either drop stuff off and meet the venous side, keep on flowing, or it'll bypass all of that, meet the veins, and come on back and not drop anything off at the tissues. Does that make anybody go, what? Don't all my tissues of my body 24/7 need something from the blood? No, they don't. As you're sitting here right now, sitting, being my operative word, do you really need blood flow to every single tissue in the lower legs, feet, toes, everything? No. So guess what? The blood flow isn't making a stop at those capillaries. It's flowing right by at that tissue level.
Is that what causes your like limbs to fall asleep? Like to have that when you try to stand up and you can't walk because like it feels like it's numb?
If I'm not mistaken, I think people still argue about that. They will say, oh yeah, well it's the blood flow. And then someone will be like, well no, wait a minute. There was some pressure on the nerve and the nerve's waking back up. So I think that, I think it's a little bit of both.
Right.
I think it's a little bit of the blood flow. And then a lot of times, if something has gone to sleep, like say for example, right now, okay, and the way you're sitting in the chair, how many of you are aware of like the pressure that might be on your hamstrings right now? You probably weren't even thinking about it till I mentioned it, right? But think about how much pressure you're feeling at this point right now. All right? And you might have to kind of shift around a little bit, okay? But let's say you didn't shift around, you just kept that pressure constant, and then you go to get up and it's like, oh, and you just fall right over because it's like, oh, well that was interesting. Because the way that the blood's moving, it's just totally bypassing all of that right now. And then it's got to catch back up. Meaning, pressure's in everything. It's really cool how it works. Not cool what happens, okay? But it's kind of cool how it works. So at that level of those capillary beds, we're going to find that on this arterial side, they're going to have, based on their structure, at these capillary beds, they'll have little areas that contain smooth muscle rings. Now, they're going to be called sphincters, okay, because that's a lot of what happens. Now, smooth muscle. Let's think about that for a second. How does smooth muscle function? Do we control it? How is smooth muscle controlled?
Involuntary.
Involuntary. Autonomic. So it's going to actually be controlled by the autonomic nervous system. So it will detect if that tissue needs the blood flow, and if not, on that heartbeat, let it pass. Maybe the next heartbeat it needs it, and it'll let it go. But at the same time, we do not, in our bodies, have the ability to supply every tissue 24/7. We don't have that much blood. That's kind of cool. We're going to see that we have these sense organs, and they are in our arteries, so therefore they're picking up sensory information. They are picking up information about my blood pressure and my blood composition. What does that mean? My blood composition. What it's composed of, and the major factor is pH. So, one of the things that the body does not allow to waver very much is pH. So that means balancing oxygens and then that carbon dioxide. So the blood composition and the blood pressure, the little sensory organs in the arteries that can pick it up, in my carotid sinuses, ones that are branching into the upper head and neck. I have some baroreceptors. These are in the walls of my internal carotids, because you have internal and external, okay? And they check for blood pressure. I have carotid bodies. These are chemoreceptors. They're checking for chemicals, and they're monitoring the composition of the blood, the majority of it being pH. In the aorta, I have some aortic bodies that are chemoreceptors. It's in the arch near the arteries that are going to be leading to the head and the upper body. They are monitoring my blood composition. They're looking at oxygen, CO2, pH. All right. This information that it's monitoring actually goes to areas of the brain that can make sense of it and then determine, do I need to increase my respiration rate, increase my heart rate, decrease my respiration rate, decrease my heart rate, all these sort of things. And it will get the body to hopefully do that and take care of the blood composition. Those capillaries, I keep talking about them because they are literally the business end. This is the only area of the body exchange takes place. There is no exchange occurring in the large, medium, even some of the smaller ones, until we get to the capillary beds. If exchange is occurring at those larger levels, something's wrong. Okay? It's broken, it's damaged, and hopefully it's trying to correct itself. It may need some help, whatever the case might be. The capillaries are my areas of exchange. Arterioles, capillaries, and then venules. Because at this capillary bed, once these arteries make their way, we meet the veins, we have our structure. It looks very web-like, okay? And we're going to find little arterioles that are present and then little venules that will begin to lead back to the veins.
So your alveoli, that wouldn't be an exchange.
Now, the alveoli, which we'll get to in the respiratory chapter, their structure that they have, those little grapes that are an alveolus, okay, those grapes are basically covered in a capillary bed. So there is tons of exchange at that one alveolus, and we have roughly 1 million each lung. Yeah, covers the size of a football field, I think, for the surface area in our lungs. So, in these capillaries, they are made up of endothelium, some basal lamina, and we're going to say that we have 3 types. But before I get into those, we'll stop at this point for today because these become important, and we'll pick up on that after spring break.